Hello everyone. I want to share something with you today. A journey on a grand scale that has been eked out before and attempted again. The ultimate Professor Oak Run. A tale that took barely 45 hours on the scale to accomplish. Let's give some context for starters. In Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, there are 400 Pokemon possible to catch in the base game. In the Treasure of Area Zero Parts 1 and 2, Game Freak introduced over 101 and 181 new and returning Pokemon that you must register in the Dex in order for it to count as an entry respectively. This includes variant forms of Pokemon found in the base game. I wanted to try this run for a long time, but never really got a chance to fully realize it. When the Switch 2 came out and the new Pokemon update launched, I attempted the run again, this time with the mindset it would take me double the length of the current prevailing video on the subject in order to accomplish. I was dead wrong. Now there are some caveats. For example, I must catch every Pokemon possible without using any abilities or obtaining any badges for the Titan, Team Star badges, or Gym Leaders. I must also do this before going to any of the signs in Kitakami, Kirin, and before the main quest in BB Academy is unlocked, which is a given regardless of whether you take the first class in the coastal biome or not. That means slow traversal, lack of access to quick routes and TMs, and low obedience levels. I can choose to either catch Pokemon with or without exploits, in which I utilize the backwards jump to some degree in order to make traversal in some areas easier, but only when all the other options had been exhausted. Being the only other one to accomplish this and document it, I was not allowed to see any of the long-form videos of John Stone's on the subject, aside of the initial video he posted on his main channel. I did look up guides occasionally because I did not have a chat room to share my accomplishments with, and I felt like that would have been a distraction, and I kind of wanted to enjoy the moment without any need to feel like I was entertaining someone. The guides I looked up were purely for sandwich powers, item locations, and levels Pokemon evolved at. The first thing to note is that this run isn't very hard, just tedious. I already knew off the bat that it was possible to catch 355 Pokemon, so I did that while checking out Kitakami and the terrarium to keep things fresh. There's a lot of grinding that only happens using Chansey and Blissey. I'm not sure how I shaved off 5 hours off his time and caught an extra 158 Pokemon in the process, but I did. Was it the Switch 2? Was it the lack of chat? Was it all just an illusion of deluding myself into thinking I'm a Pokemon master? Let's go over the steps bit by bit and find out. The first thing is that this run starts a lot like the other. I caught a lot of Pokemon. I even found a glitched Arcanine in a river that shouldn't have been there. Everything was going as well as it could be, regardless. I stopped Kitakami as well, catching as many as I could. I even hatched a Chimchar thanks to Jock, whose evolution lines will be counted towards our Pokemon entries in the BB Academy Pokedex, which we will obtain later. By the end of the 10th hour of the first day, I had caught around 177 Pokemon between the Paldea and Kitakami dexes, and without grinding for Chansey and Blissey. It's worth noting that this would be the longest day in the catch session, as it was my birthday, and had the whole day to myself. What better way to spend that than playing a bunch of 60 FPS Pokemon Violet? Also worthy of note, Kitakami is the earliest place you can catch Earthworm without obtaining any of the badges. I also did not use Spore or False Swipe for most of the run. On the second day, I continued west and Chansey grinding. I felt that maybe I could have an easier time evolving Pokemon than catching them, so I focused on that as well. This is where I start talking about my method for Chansey grinding, that I've been using since the 7-star raids have been a thing. I utilize this method to save on resources like money, HP effort items, spawn more Blissey, and generally just grind. It's the same sandwiches we make, but there's a cheaper one available to you early on in the game. It just takes 2 ingredients and will save you money hand over fist, reducing the need to fight trainers. That sandwich is chorizo with mayo. This amazing sandwich only costs you 150 and 120 for a grand total of 270 Pokédollars. Much more efficient and economical than the outrageous 510 Pokédollar 4-ingredient ham sandwich recommended for the run. Take a bite, I'm sure you'll grow to love it too. Anyways, min-maxing my dollars aside, I now have more resources to dedicate toward Pokeballs. I spend most of this time grinding evolutions. I caught up to 221 Pokemon that day. This was 14 hours and 5 minutes in. The third day I start off with Chansey grinding again, getting more Pokemon up to speed. Since I have very little time to play due to work, I got to make the most of my time when I do get the time to play. This means that I also have to min-max my time playing and find the most efficient way to collect as many Pokemon as possible within a short amount of time. This is also where I found one of my first white whale Pokemon, Illumise. Now, Illumise isn't normally a rare or even sought after Pokemon, but in this Oak Run, getting an Illumise in a den is everything. This is because Illumise is only available after doing the side post main quest in Kitakami with Kirin. If you choose not to do this quest, I hope you enjoy the sun because it's permanently daytime until it's time for the festival. Nocturnal Pokemon won't be available to catch or battle. You will either have to find them in dens or catch them later. Notable white whale Pokemon that I ran into fairly easily were Litwick, Hoothoot, but Volbeat somehow eluded me for the entire run. But we'll get to Volbeat later. This was when I started doing an exploit to traverse around Kitakami, the backwards jump. For those of you who do not know, the backwards jump is an exploit that allows Koraidon and Miraidon to grab a hold of slopes and craggy terrain more easily. Certain slopes that give the sliding animation are the culprit. If you can find these areas in craggy terrain, you can scale up virtually anything in the game by jumping backwards successfully and with correct timing. It doesn't necessarily have to be frame perfect, but it does need to be relatively quick. Anyway, so why did I use the backwards jump? There's an area around Kitakami where you can get the syrupy apple for Applin to evolve into Diplin. This apple is relatively cheap, but without the exploit is intended to prevent those without either climb or high jump abilities from getting to it. To me, backwards jump is less of an exploit and more of a tool. I could not use it, but if you've gone this long without patching it out, I'm starting to suspect maybe you want me to secret break your game a little. After this exploit, I returned to Chansey grind again. By the end of the day, I had registered a whopping 268 Pokemon. This was 16 hours and 44 minutes in. The fourth day. Today is the first day we register more Pokemon and finally catch the first one off Pokemon available to us. Blood Moon or Saluna. Not too bad of a day really, nothing really worthy to note other than my Quackball took a major beating from Blood Moon. At 19 hours and 30 minutes in, I have caught 303 Pokemon in total. The fifth day. This was the last of the days I did before heading into BB Academy and a terrarium. After Chansey grinding for a while, I decided I was safe enough with my level 80 Quackball to try catching some of the Ice-type Pokemon on the mountain. I ended with my Bisharp evolving into King Gambit and activating the waypoint near Team Star's fighting base. Note that I'm still catching Pokemon without False Swipe or Spore. At 21 hours in and 56 minutes, I caught 320 Pokemon. The sixth day. This was the day I finally activated the BB Academy route, and my note-taking sort of stopped, so I actually have to go over my footage to see what I had done. Anyways, the reasons I started the BB Academy is because I had a hard time getting two Pokemon in particular to spawn close to me, no matter what I attempted. Those Pokemon were Lumineon and Bruxish. After about an hour or so of attempting to get closer to no avail, I ended up with a scheme to just start the BB Academy route and obtain them there. That way, when I said I had caught them, I could just give a straightforward answer. Well, I still caught them. I could have waited on these islands for hours and Bruxish may have come closer, but am I really going to go through with that knowing that I can get them much sooner? You be the judge. Anyways, I caught Bruxish, Jupiter, and Lumineon and promptly went to bed. 27 hours and 27 minutes in, I caught approximately 371 Pokemon. We not only beat Johnstone's record for this game, we exceeded it. This is to go even further beyond. The seventh day. Day 7 was another short play session. I caught more BB Dex Pokemon, bringing in a total to 423 Pokemon as of 31 hours and 54 minutes in. This was a very unnoteworthy day. You'll have those sometimes. The 8th day. There were several advancements this day. The first to note being that I remembered that you can buy stuff from the vending machines in the academy. and that Ultra Balls are immediately unlocked. This would have made catching certain Pokemon even easier. The other thing of note is that you can get access to more sandwich ingredients and even some rare ones here. There will be some useful ones for the level 1 Steel Encounter Power sandwich I'll have to make later for Scissor. The most notable part of this day was that I had to calculate Tyrogue's individual values in order to determine which one I had the best chance of meeting the requirements for Hitmontop. I had one candidate, and that was 1 to 2 effort values of being correct. Now I could have just restarted the game if I was wrong, but I kinda liked my odds, so I gave it around a total of 4 effort values to its defense-based total stat, and got a Hitmontop. First try, what did you expect? Despair? Lament? I also used the Pokeball skip and back jump exploits to get to Fernada. I didn't know what cave Johnstone was talking about, so I kinda had to go and brute force it. This part is unnecessary, apparently. You can go through this without having to do any of that, so I just made it harder on myself. This area had a lot of the Pokemon I was still missing. I also beat a bunch of Sinistea to get enough chips for the malicious armor, giving me several edge. Finally, I used the back jump exploit to catch a bunch of Pokemon I would otherwise have to wait a long time for in BB Academy, Cleavor, Beldum, Shieldon, Skarmory, Archaludan, and Golett. These Pokemon are possible to get without the long jump or climb ability, so keep that in mind. You do not need climbing in order to get most of these Pokemon. The final day. This one is a bit of a two-parter. After work, I went on my daily to look for any sign of Volbeat. This is the one Pokemon that has eluded me over the course of my run, and it has become my greatest white whale over the run, and then headed to bed, as what had become the norm for the month. I raised a few Pokemon with Chansey grinding for a few minutes. That was it. After waking up, I dove into raising the final set of Pokemon and evolving any Pokemon who I might have missed over the course of the playthrough, due to my lack of knowledge. At 43 hours and 30 minutes, I had 531 out of 532 Pokemon caught. I then utilized time travel to attempt to spawn a Volbeat den, but I couldn't seem to find one. After 3 failed attempts, 75 dens checked, and about a little less than 45 hours in, I have called it quits for now, as there is a lack of evidence that Volbeat dens even spawn in Violet Kitakami. Now I understand that Volbeat spawn at night, but I can't find it before the first sign. After so many days and attempts, I'm either the man with the worst luck in the world, or there is no Volbeat. At 531 Pokemon, I can safely say I caught most of them before the first gym in the quickest amount of time so far. My record is possibly more completable and beatable. If I wanted to, I could be like Goldie Roger and tell you all that if you wanted to beat my record, I left everything in one Pokemon. And that Pokemon is Volbeat. This is basically an overview of the future before I pick a road. Now I have several roads I can take. If I take the Powerless route and advance the Kitakami storyline, I can catch Volbeat, Ogerpon, and the Loyal 3. But that's 5 Pokemon for a couple hour quest. If I beat Orthworm, I can get 2 Treasures of Ruin, or with Bombardier and then Tatsugiri, I could possibly get the 4 Treasures of Ruin with little problem. I know that 2 are attainable with the backjump exploit, but that would probably take me longer than the 45 hours I've already played to ascertain which stakes are capable of being pulled. I kinda just want to play the game already. At this point, obedience isn't as much of an issue as I have several Pokemon I raised from below level 20, pretty well to help me with this challenge. However, Orthworm doesn't offer me much on its own, as we already caught it back in Kitakami. There's also Iron Treads, which is obtainable before reaching Area 0. All in all, it's a tough decision, but not one that bothers me too much. Obviously, the route to go is through Kitakami, but ultimately, I have a total of 4 routes that I can take from here, and they will reward me with 5 Pokemon, 2 Pokemon, 2 Pokemon, and 1 Pokemon, respectively. Then there's the fact that after 8 badges, we are allowed to catch 2 more Paradox Pokemon. Apparently the post-game unlocks more Paradox Pokemon to catch as well as Miraidon, and there are 3 raids unlocked for Slowking, Palafin, and Scizor in the game. But we only need 2, and after beating both the main story and Teal Mask, we unlock the Clubhouse in BB Academy that allows us to upgrade the biome to capture the other starter Pokemon. But to attempt these quests on your own is boring and quite frankly tedious, but doable. I could document how long it would take to do on your own, but basically a whopping 69 Pokemon, not counting the random 4th Gen first starter Pokemon Jack gives you, are unobtainable up to this point. These Pokemon can be obtained without the flying upgrade from Amaris, but doing BBQs without flying is like pulling teeth. Before we finish the Indigo Disc, we will need to obtain 47 of the 69 Pokemon, meaning we only need to unlock 3 biomes for a total of 54 Pokemon unlocked for the chance to catch Iron Crown and Iron Boulder. Before we finish the Indigo Disc, we'll need to obtain at least 47 of the 69 Pokemon, meaning we will only need to unlock 3 biomes for a total of 54 Pokemon unlocked for a chance to get Iron Crown and Iron Boulder. Unlocking the last biome gives us access to the last 18 Pokemon. It's 18, right? Beating the Indigo Disc nets us Terapagos, and beating the Epilogue gives us Petron. I'm having a hard time keeping track of all these numbers, but basically we're missing about 90 more Pokemon, if we count Volbeat. So off we go, back to the land of Kitakami. We have several more hours of play, so let's make the most of it.